The Valkyrie cargo ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its name was the Gentle Current, and it carried medical supplies to colonies on the edge of known space. The crew had made this journey many times before. They knew the route well. They knew the dangers. They did not expect to find anything unusual. Senior Navigator Dizes was the first to notice something strange. Dizes was a Valkyrie, a being made of crystal and soft blue light. Her body hummed when she was curious, and right now she was very curious indeed. Her instruments had detected something in the debris field ahead. The Shattered Reach, they called this place. 10,000 years ago, a great war had destroyed an entire civilization here. Now only broken ships and dead worlds remained, but this object was different. It was small, it was crude, and it was not 10,000 years old. Dizes called for Captain Orith. The captain was old by Valkyrie standards, his crystal body clouded with age but still strong. He looked at the readings and felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt uncertain. The object was a ship. If you could call it that. It was barely more than a metal box with engines attached. Its design was primitive in ways that made no sense. No species in the Galactic Compact built ships like this. No species in the Compact's records had ever built ships like this. The ship was dead. No power, no movement. It tumbled slowly through the debris like a leaf on water. Captain Orith made a decision. He ordered his crew to bring the strange vessel aboard. The Valkyrie cut through the hull with careful precision. Inside, they found exactly one room. The room contained supplies that had long ago run out, equipment that had long ago failed, and a single pod made of glass and metal. Inside the pod was a creature. It was soft. That was the first thing they noticed. No scales, no armor, no protective shell of any kind. It had skin like fabric, thin and fragile. It had hair on its head, dark and tangled. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a face that looked almost peaceful in its frozen sleep. The pod was failing. Whatever power had kept the creature alive was almost gone. The reading said the creature had perhaps 6 hours left. Maybe less. Dizes looked at the captain. The captain looked at the creature. The Compact's laws were very clear about situations like this. Unknown species were to be documented and reported. They were not to be saved. Resources were limited. The galaxy was harsh. Sentiment had no place in survival. But then Dizes noticed something. The creature's hand was wrapped around a small object. She scanned it carefully. It was a data storage device, simple and old. She accessed its contents and projected them into the air. Images appeared. The creature, but smaller and younger. Other creatures like it, different sizes and ages. They stood together in front of a blue and green world. They smiled. They held each other close. A family. The creature had been holding on to its family. Captain Orith was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Prepare the medical bay. The creature nearly died 6 times in the first 3 days. The Valkyrie did not know its biology. They did not know what it needed to survive. They tried everything. They failed more than they succeeded. But they did not stop trying. On the 4th day, a young medic named Selim discovered that the creature needed oxygen in specific amounts. Too much was poison. Too little was death. The balance was delicate and strange. On the 7th day, they learned that the creature needed water constantly. Its body leaked fluid through its skin. Without replacement, it would dry up and die. On the 12th day, they realized the creature needed darkness to sleep. Its biology demanded regular periods of unconsciousness. Without rest, its mind would break apart. Every day brought new challenges. Every challenge cost resources the ship could not spare. Captain Orith received messages from the Compact, asking why he had deviated from his route. He lied. He said there had been engine trouble. He said they were making repairs. The crew said nothing. They worked together to keep the creature alive. They did not talk about why. Some things did not need words. On the 17th day, the creature opened its eyes. They were brown, like polished wood. They moved around the room, seeing but not understanding. The creature tried to speak, but its language was nothing the translators could recognize. It made sounds that rose and fell like music, but carried no meaning the Valkyrie could grasp. The creature was afraid. That much was clear. It was surrounded by strange beings in a strange place, and it did not know if it would live or die. Dizes approached slowly. She made herself small and soft. She pointed to herself and spoke her name. Then she waited. The creature watched her for a long time. Then, slowly, it pointed to itself. Elena, it said. Elena Vasquez. The name was strange on Valkyrie tongues, but they learned it anyway. Elena Vasquez. The creature had a name. The creature was a person. Over the following days, Elena began to understand. Through gestures and pictures and endless patience, the Valkyrie explained what had happened. They had found her ship. They had saved her life. She was safe now. When Elena finally understood, she wept. Water fell from her eyes and ran down her face. At first the crew thought she was injured, that something had gone wrong. But Dizes realized the truth. The creature was not broken. The creature was grateful. Elena spent hours looking at the images of her family. The Valkyrie learned that the others in the pictures were gone. Her ship had been part of something called an expedition. Something had gone wrong. Everyone else had died. Elena was alone. She was the last of her kind, as far as anyone knew. Captain Orth watched the creature grieve and made another decision. He altered the ship's course. He sent false reports to the compact. He committed crimes that could cost him everything. When Dizes asked him why, the old captain was quiet for a long moment. Because she held on to her family, he said at last. Even when all hope was gone, she held on to love. How could I look at that and do nothing? Dizes had no answer. She was not sure one was needed. The gentle current continued its journey through the stars, carrying its strange passenger toward an uncertain future. None of them knew what would come next. None of them knew how this small act of kindness would change everything. They only knew that they had saved a life, and that was enough. For now, it was enough. Elena learned quickly. This surprised everyone aboard the gentle current, including Elena herself. The Valkyrie language was complex. It used sounds and light together, words and colors mixing into meaning. Most species took years to learn even the basics. Elena learned enough to hold conversations in 3 months. By 6 months, she could argue, joke, and tell stories. The crew did not understand how she did it. Elena tried to explain. Humans, she said, were social creatures. They needed to communicate. Their brains were built for language in ways that even they did not fully understand. Learning to talk was as natural as learning to breathe. The Valkyrie found this fascinating and slightly terrifying. Elena made herself useful in other ways too. The gentle current was an old ship, and old ships had problems. Systems failed. Equipment broke. The crew had learned to work around these issues because fixing them properly was too expensive. Elena did not accept this. She looked at broken systems and saw puzzles waiting to be solved. She took apart machines and put them back together in ways that should not have worked. But somehow they did. The engines ran smoother. The life support used less power. The navigation systems became faster and more accurate. When asked how she knew these things, Elena shrugged. She said humans had a talent for seeing patterns. They looked at problems, and their minds automatically searched for solutions. It was not magic. It was just how human brains worked. Captain Orth began to realize that the creature they had saved was more valuable than anyone had imagined. But Elena's greatest gift was not her mind. It was her heart. She remembered everything the Valkyrie had done for her. Every sleepless night the medics had spent keeping her alive. Every resource the captain had spent on her recovery. Every risk the crew had taken by hiding her from the compact. Elena could not pay back this debt. She knew that. But she could try. Every day, she looked for ways to help. She worked harder than anyone asked her to. She learned the name of every crew member and the things that mattered to them. She listened when they were sad and laughed when they were happy. The crew had saved a stranger. Now that stranger was becoming family. 1 year after her rescue, everything changed. The gentle current was passing through a region called the Hollows when the attack came. 3 ships appeared from nowhere, fast and heavily armed. They were Rethki vessels, and they demanded immediate surrender. The Rethki were raiders. They took what they wanted and left nothing behind. But they were also a protected species under compact law. Attacking them, even in self-defense, carried terrible punishments. Most ships simply surrendered and hoped for mercy. Captain Orith ordered his crew to stand down. He prepared to negotiate. He hoped he could save at least some of his people. Elena did not understand protected species. She did not understand compact law. She understood only one thing. The people who had saved her life were in danger. She went to the cargo bay and waited. The Rethki boarding party consisted of 12 soldiers. They were tall and covered in thick scales. They carried weapons that could cut through metal like paper. They expected to find terrified merchants ready to give them everything. They found Elena Vasquez instead. She had built something from engine parts and scrap metal. It was crude. It was ugly. But it worked. Later, the Valkyrie would call it a weapon. Elena called it a persuader. The first Rethki died before he knew anything was wrong. The second died reaching for his gun. The third and fourth died trying to run. The others fled back to their ships, screaming warnings about a monster in the cargo bay. Elena took a blade across her shoulder during the fight. A plasma bolt burned a hole through her side. She did not stop. She did not slow down. She kept fighting until there was no one left to fight. When Captain Orith found her, she was sitting against the wall of the cargo bay. Her blood was everywhere. Red, the Valkyrie noticed. Human blood was red. Is everyone safe? Elena asked. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were clear. Orith could not speak. He simply nodded. Elena smiled. Then she passed out. The Valkyrie medics worked through the night to save her again. This time, they knew her biology better. This time, they knew what she needed. She survived, though the scars would never fully heal. The Galactic Compact demanded answers. A protected species had been attacked. 4 Rethki were dead. Someone had to pay for this crime. Captain Orith refused to hand over Elena. He sent a message to the Compact, explaining what had happened. He described how his ship had been attacked, how his crew had been threatened, how a member of his family had defended them. He called Elena a hero. The Compact called her a criminal, but word was already spreading. The story of the human in the cargo bay moved through back channels and whispered conversations. Traders told merchants. Merchants told pilots. Pilots told soldiers. Within weeks, half the sector knew what had happened. A human had fought for strangers. A human had bled for people who were not her own kind. A human had looked at impossible odds and chosen violence over surrender. Some species found this disturbing. Humans were soft and weak and had no natural weapons. How had one of them killed 4 Rethki soldiers? Other species found something else in the story. They found hope. The galaxy was a hard place. Species looked out for themselves and no one else. Trust was rare. Loyalty was rarer. The idea that someone would fight and bleed for strangers was almost impossible to believe. But Elena Vasquez had done exactly that. a third merchant prince heard the story and remembered a time when a human had saved his daughter from a reactor leak on a space station. A hive mind called the Consensus of Minds remembered a fascinating creature who saw patterns no one else could see. A disgraced admiral remembered the old stories about humans, about how dangerous they could be when protecting those they loved. Something was changing. Something was growing. Elena recovered slowly. She did not know that her actions had started something she could not imagine. She only knew that she had protected her family, and that was all that mattered. The debt she owed could never be repaid. But she would spend the rest of her life trying. That was what humans did. That was who humans were. They remembered kindness, and they never stopped trying to return it. 3 years had passed since Elena Vasquez woke up in a strange ship surrounded by crystal beings who glowed with soft light. 3 years since she learned she was alone in a galaxy full of wonders and terrors. 3 years she started searching. She never stopped looking for Earth. She never stopped hoping. Every station they visited, Elena searched the data archives. Every port they docked at, she asked questions. Every signal they detected, she analyzed for familiar patterns. The Valkyrie helped when they could, but the galaxy was vast beyond human understanding. Finding one small planet in such endless darkness seemed impossible. Elena refused to accept impossible that the signal came on an ordinary day. The gentle current was refueling at a station near the border of map space. Elena was running her usual searches, expecting nothing, hoping for everything. And then she found it. The signal was faint. It came from incredibly far away, from a system on the edge of everything. It broadcast on a frequency that no species in the compact used. But Elena recognized it immediately. It was a human frequency. It was a human signal. Someone was out there. Someone was calling for help. Elena traced the signal to its source. Her heart sank when she saw the location. The system was deep inside the territory of the Dominion of Keth. The Keth were not like the Valkyrie or the other species Elena had met. The Keth were conquerors. They controlled a vast empire through fear and force. They tolerated no outsiders in their space. Ships that crossed their borders without permission were destroyed without warning. Elena spent 3 days studying the signal. She confirmed what she already knew. The signal was human. The signal was real. Someone was out there, waiting to be found. She told no one what she planned to do. She used her savings to buy a small shuttle. It was old and slow, but it would get her where she needed to go. She loaded it with supplies and fuel. She plotted a course into Keth territory. On the night before she left, she wrote a message for the crew of the Gentle Current. She thanked them for saving her life. She thanked them for accepting her as family. She told them not to follow her. She told them that some journeys had to be made alone. Then she launched her shuttle and flew toward the unknown. Elena was 2 days into Keth space when she realized she was not alone. A ship appeared on her sensors. Then another. Then another. Within an hour, she counted 17 vessels following her path. She recognized some of them. The Gentle Current was there, of course. Captain Orth would never let her go alone. But there were others too. Ships she had never seen before, belonging to species she barely knew. She opened the communication channel and demanded to know what they were doing. The responses came quickly. A third merchant prince explained that he owed Elena a debt for saving his daughter, and debts must be paid. The Consensus of Minds said they found humans fascinating and wished to observe what happened next. A gruff voice belonging to a disgraced compact admiral said he wanted to see if humans were really as dangerous as the stories claimed. Elena tried to argue. She tried to order them to turn back. She told them this was her mission, her risk, her choice. Captain Orth answered for all of them. "You taught us something," the old Valkyrie said. You taught us that family is not about blood or species. Family is about choice. You chose us. Now we choose you. We are not leaving." Elena did not know what to say. She sat in her small shuttle, surrounded by strangers who had become friends, who had become something more. She thought about the crew of the Gentle Current, who had broken their own laws to save her. She thought about all the small kindnesses she had tried to repay. She thought about how far a single act of compassion could reach. She did not argue anymore. She simply flew forward, and they followed. The Dominion of Keth responded exactly as expected. The first warning came when they were 2 days from the signal source. A Keth patrol ship demanded their immediate surrender. The fleet ignored the demand and kept flying. The second warning came 1 day later. 3 Keth warships appeared, weapons armed and ready. They said that any ship that did not turn back would be destroyed. The fleet kept flying. The battle began at dawn on the 7th day. Keth forces poured out of nowhere, dozens of ships against 17. The sky filled with fire and light. The makeshift fleet scattered, trying to survive against impossible odds. Elena's shuttle was among the first to be hit. A Keth interceptor tore through her engines and left her drifting. She watched on her screens as the battle raged around her. She saw ships burning. She saw friends dying, but her shuttle was still moving. Damaged and slow, leaking air and power, it continued toward the signal. The Keth let her go. A single dying ship was beneath their notice. Elena patched the holes in her hull with emergency sealant. She redirected power from systems she did not need. She kept flying. The signal grew stronger as she entered the system 12 hours later. The signal came from a frozen moon orbiting a massive gas giant. Elena guided her failing shuttle toward the surface. She did not have enough power for a proper landing. She did not have enough fuel for a second attempt. She crashed. The impact broke 2 of her ribs and shattered her left arm. She hung in her seat for a long moment, watching blood drip from her face onto the console. Everything hurt. Everything was dark, but she was alive. And the signal was close. Elena crawled out of the wreckage and looked at the frozen landscape around her. Ice and stone stretched to the horizon. The temperature was far below anything a human should survive. The signal came from 3 kilometers away. Elena started walking. She walked through ice storms that cut her skin like knives. She walked through cold that tried to freeze her blood solid. She walked through pain that screamed at her to stop, to rest, to give up. She did not stop. She did not rest. She did not give up. Humans were pursuit predators. Their ancient ancestors had hunted by following prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They were built to endure. They were built to keep going when everything said they should fall. Elena kept going. 6 hours later, she found the bunker. It was built into the moon's surface, hidden beneath layers of ice. Human construction. Human design. Elena recognized it immediately. Inside, she found 17 cryogenic pods. Inside the pods, she found 17 humans, survivors of another ship. Another failed voyage. They had been waiting here for 40 years, frozen and forgotten, hoping someone would come. Elena found the control panel. She activated the revival sequence. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the pods beginning to open. She had found them. She had found her people. Everything else could wait. Elena woke to voices speaking her language. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. For 3 years, she had heard only alien tongues and translated speech. The sound of human words and human voices was almost too much to believe, but it was real. She opened her eyes and saw faces above her. Human faces. Brown skin and pale skin. Dark eyes and light eyes. Young and old. All of them looking at her with wonder and confusion. "She is waking up," someone said. A woman's voice, soft and careful. Elena tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her body, and she fell back with a gasp. Her ribs were broken. Her arm was shattered. Her skin was covered in burns from the cold. She was more damaged than she had ever been in her life, but she was surrounded by humans. That made everything worth it. A man knelt beside her. He was older, with gray hair and kind eyes. His hands were gentle as he examined her injuries. "You need medical attention," he said, "but our supplies are limited. We will do what we can." Elena nodded weakly. "How many?" 17 of us woke up," the man said. "You activated the revival sequence just in time. Another few months and the pods would have failed completely." 17. Elena had saved 17 people. She tried to smile, but her face hurt too much. "Who are you?" the man asked. "How did you find us?" Elena took a deep breath and told them everything. She told them about the failed expedition that had killed everyone she knew. She told them about waking up on an alien ship, surrounded by beings made of crystal and light. She told them about the Valkyrie who had saved her life and the family she had found among strangers. She told them about the signal that had led her across an empire's borders, through a battle in space, and across 3 kilometers of frozen hell. The survivors listened in silence. Some of them wept. Others simply stared at her with expressions she could not read. When she finished, the older man spoke again. "My name is David Chun," he said. "I was the captain of the Horizon's Edge. We left Earth 40 years ago. Our mission was to establish humanity's first colony beyond the solar system." He paused, and his face grew sad. "We failed." He told his own story. The Horizon's Edge had suffered a catastrophic failure 6 months into its journey. Most of the crew had died instantly. The survivors had managed to reach this moon and build a shelter. They had put themselves into cryogenic sleep, hoping that someone would come to rescue them. For 40 years, they had slept and waited. For 40 years, the universe had forgotten them until Elena came. "You walked through a frozen wasteland with broken bones," David said quietly. "You nearly died to save people you had never met. Why?" Elena thought about the question for a long moment. "Because you needed help," she finally said. "Because I could help. Because someone once saved me when they did not have to, and I have been trying to repay that kindness ever since." David did not respond. He simply looked at her with something like awe in his eyes. The next few days were difficult. The bunker had medical supplies, but they were old and limited. The survivors did their best to treat Elena's injuries, but she needed more help than they could give. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness. In her waking moments, she talked with the other survivors. She learned their names and their stories. She told them about the galaxy outside, about the Valkyrie and the Compact, and all the wonders she had seen. They listened with hungry ears. For 40 years, they had known nothing but this frozen moon. The universe Elena described was beyond anything they had imagined. On the 3rd day, something happened that changed everything. A signal cut through the bunker's ancient communication system. A familiar voice filled the air. "Elena? Elena, can you hear me?" It was Captain, or ETH. Elena crawled to the communication panel, ignoring the pain that screamed through her body. She activated the transmitter with trembling fingers. "Orith? How are you here? I thought the Keth destroyed everyone." The old Valkyrie's voice was weak but filled with relief. "We survived. Some of us, at least. 7 ships made it through the battle. We have been searching for you ever since." Tears ran down Elena's face. "I found them, Orith. I found other humans. 17 of them. They have been waiting here for 40 years." There was silence on the other end. Then Orith spoke again, and his voice was thick with emotion. "We are coming to get you. All of you. Hold on, Elena. Just hold on." The rescue took 2 more days. The surviving ships had to avoid Keth patrols and navigate through dangerous space. But they came. 7 ships carrying crews who had followed a single human into an empire's territory because they believed in her. When the first shuttle landed on the moon's surface, Elena was waiting at the bunker's entrance. She could barely stand, but she refused to meet her friends lying down. Captain Orth was the first one through the door. He stopped when he saw Elena, broken and bandaged and leaning against the wall. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Orth crossed the room and wrapped his crystalline arms around her as gently as he could. "You foolish, wonderful creature," he whispered. "You beautiful, impossible human." Elena laughed and cried at the same time. Behind her, the 17 survivors of the horizon's edge watched with amazement as aliens embraced their rescuer like family. David Chun stepped forward. He looked at Orth with uncertain eyes. "Thank you for coming for her," he said carefully. "Thank you for following her here." Orth released Elena and turned to face the human captain. The Valkyrie's crystal body flickered with soft light. "We did not follow her to be thanked," he said. "We followed her because she is one of us. And now you are too." David did not know what to say. He looked at Elena, who smiled through her tears. "I told you," she said. "Family is not about blood or species. Family is about choice." The evacuation took several hours. The survivors were weak from their long sleep and needed careful handling. The ships were damaged and crowded. But somehow, everyone fit. Somehow, everyone survived. As the shuttle lifted off from the frozen moon, Elena looked out the window at the landscape that had nearly killed her. She thought about the walk through the ice. She thought about the moment she had found the bunker. She thought about all the choices that had led her to this point. Beside her, David Chun was also looking out the window. "Where do we go now?" he asked quietly. Elena thought about the Galactic Compact. She thought about the Dominion of Keth. She thought about all the forces that would want to study them, control them, or destroy them. Then she thought about the Valkyrie who had saved her life. She thought about the fleet that had followed her into battle. She thought about all the beings who had shown her that kindness existed even in the darkest corners of the universe. "We go forward," she said. "Together." David nodded slowly. He did not fully understand this strange new galaxy his people had awakened into. But he understood Elena. He understood what she represented. Hope, determination, the stubborn, human refusal to give up. That was enough. For now, that was enough. The Galactic Compact had not seen anything like this in 800 years. Representatives from 1,000 species gathered in the great assembly hall on Station Prime. They filled every seat, every balcony, every standing space. They had come to witness something that should not have been possible. A new species was asking for recognition. The Compact had rules about this. New species had to prove themselves worthy. They had to demonstrate technological advancement, cultural sophistication, and the ability to contribute to galactic civilization. The process usually took decades. Humanity had been known to the galaxy for less than 4 years, but the circumstances were unusual. Very unusual. The Dominion of Keth had filed a formal complaint. They claimed that an illegal invasion force had crossed their borders, attacked their ships, and violated their sovereignty. They demanded punishment for those responsible. The Valkyrie had filed a counter-complaint. They said the fleet had been conducting a rescue mission. They said they had acted out of compassion, not aggression. They presented evidence that human survivors had been trapped in Keth territory, waiting for help that had taken 40 years to arrive. The debate had raged for weeks. Species took sides. Alliances shifted. Old grudges flared into new conflicts. And through it all, the humans waited. Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the assembly floor. Behind her stood the 17 survivors of the horizon's edge, cleaned and healed, but still bearing the marks of their long ordeal. Around them stood the crews who had followed Elena into Keth space, representatives from 12 different species who had risked everything for strangers. The speaker of the assembly called for silence. The hall grew quiet. "We are here to decide a matter of great importance," the speaker said. Its voice echoed through the vast chamber. "The humans request recognition as a member species of the Galactic Compact. The Dominion of Keth opposes this request. Both sides will now present their arguments." The Keth representative spoke first. It was a tall being, covered in dark scales, with eyes that held no warmth. "These humans are criminals," it said. "They violated our borders. They attacked our ships. They killed our soldiers. Their rescue mission was nothing more than an illegal invasion." The representative pointed at Elena with a clawed hand. "This creature is the worst of all. She has spread chaos wherever she goes. She has encouraged others to break laws, to ignore treaties, to value sentiment over order. If the Compact recognizes humanity, it will send a message that any species can break the rules as long as they have a good story to tell." The Keth sat down. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Then Captain Orth stood up. "I will speak for the accused," the old Valkyrie said. The assembly grew quiet again. Orth was a respected captain, despite his recent actions. His words carried weight. 4 years ago, my ship found a dying creature in a broken vessel. By law, I should have reported her and continued on my way. Instead, I saved her life." He paused, letting the words settle. "I broke the law. I admit this freely. But I ask you to consider why. The creature I found was holding pictures of her family. Even as she died, she held on to love. How could I look at that and do nothing?" Orth gestured toward Elena. "This human repaid my kindness 1,000 times over. She worked harder than anyone on my crew. She fixed problems we had ignored for years. She learned our language, our customs, our ways. And when raiders attacked my ship, she fought for us. She bled for us. She nearly died for us." The Valkyrie's crystal body flickered with emotion. "The Keth speak of laws and borders. I speak of something older and more important. I speak of kindness. I speak of loyalty. I speak of the bond between those who choose to care for each other." He pointed to the 12 species standing behind Elena. "Look at these beings. They come from different worlds, different cultures, different histories. They have nothing in common except one thing. All of them, in some small way, were touched by Elena Vasquez. All of them chose to follow her into danger because she showed them what loyalty means." Orth turned back to the assembly. The Keth asked what message recognition would send. "I will tell you. It would send a message that compassion matters, that kindness can change the galaxy, that a single act of mercy can create ripples that spread further than anyone can imagine." He sat down. The hall was completely silent. Then Elena stepped forward. She was still healing. Her arm was in a cast. Her ribs were wrapped in bandages. She moved slowly and carefully, but her eyes were clear and bright. "I am not a diplomat," she said. "I am not a leader. I am just a survivor who got lucky." She looked around the assembly, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. 4 years ago, I was dying alone in the darkness. A Valkyrie captain saved my life when he had no reason to. He broke his own laws to show kindness to a stranger. Elena's voice grew stronger. "I have spent every day since then trying to repay that kindness. I have worked. I have fought. I have walked through frozen wastelands with broken bones. I have done everything I could to show that his faith in me was not misplaced." She gestured to the survivors behind her. "These are my people. They waited 40 years for someone to find them. I found them, but I did not do it alone. I did it with the help of friends who believed that strangers were worth saving Alana faced the assembly one final time. You show compassion to one human. Now there are 18. Now there are 18. Someday there will be thousands, millions, and every single one of them will know what you did. Every single one of them will carry this debt. She smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression. We are really good at paying our debts. The vote took 3 hours. Species debated and argued and made deals behind closed doors. The Keth threatened consequences. Other species threatened consequences in return. In the end, it was not close. The Galactic Compact voted to recognize humanity by a margin of almost 3-1. Alina watched the announcement from the floor of the assembly. Around her, her friends celebrated. The Valkyrie crew embraced each other. The other species cheered and laughed. The 17 survivors of the Horizon's Edge stood together, still not quite believing what had happened. Captain Orith appeared at Elena's side. "You did it," he said quietly. "You changed everything." Elena shook her head. "We did it," she said. "All of us, together." She looked out at the celebrating crowd, at the beings who had become her family, at the humans who had been given a second chance. "This is just the beginning," she said. "There are more humans out there. More lost ships. More forgotten souls. And now we have the resources to find them." Orith nodded slowly. "What happens then?" Elena thought about the future. She thought about humanity growing and spreading across the stars. She thought about the debts they would carry and the kindness they would repay. "Then we show the galaxy who we really are," she said. "We show them that humans never forget. We never abandon our friends. We never stop fighting for the people we love." She looked at Orith with eyes full of gratitude and determination. "You saved one human. You changed the course of history. And someday, when your people need help, countless humans will stand at your side. I promise you that." Orith did not doubt her. He had seen what humans could do. He had seen their kindness and their fury, their weakness and their strength. He had seen Elena Vasquez walk through hell for strangers, got the galaxy, had no idea what was coming. But Orith thought it might be something wonderful. Kindness was like that. You never knew what it would grow into. You just had to trust that it would grow.